Hi, this is Lisa with stampschool.com, and today we are going to make a sympathy stamp using two of the new stamp sets from Stamp School. The first stamp set is Natural Landscapes, and this one has a lot of trees, grasses, flowers, and that kind of thing that you can use for landscape design. The second one that we're using today is Christian Sympathy. This one has some sentiments that you can use on the inside as well as the outside of your cards. The first thing that we're going to do today is cut our cardstock to a base. We're using the snow cone cardstock, the pop tone cardstock. Cut that to 5.5 by 8.5. We are going to make a mask today to start off our card, and we're using Eclipse tape to make our mask. So the first thing you do is you're going to cut a little bit of the mask material that is just big enough to cover your stamped image. You don't have to be real fussy here. You just cut a little bit bigger than your stamp. We're using the roll, so it's really nice that the whole piece is sticky versus a pop or something that you just have just the top of. This thing is all sticky the whole way through. So I'm just going to take a black ink. I'm going to ink up the tree stamp, and I'm going to stamp that on the Eclipse tape, making that entire thing sticky versus a post-it note, which is just sticky on the top. This whole thing is going to be sticky. So you just stamp on that, and then you're going to cut it out. And what we're doing now is we're going to do kind of loosely cutting out so that you can just use a mask for the general tree. I'm going to quick clean my stamp here a minute. I know Tim Holtz doesn't like to clean his stamps, but I'm kind of retentive that way, that I kind of like to have clean stamps. We did use the stamp right out of the box. You can also use, if you have a little bit of a finish on there that doesn't get a nice clear stamp, you can use that little eraser. That helps to kind of take that off, that finish off of your stamp. If you find that your stamps are beading, you can use that. Okay, so here we're just kind of loosely cutting around there, and I just wanted to use the stamp itself has a little bit of a mask or a shadow, so I'm just going to lay that on that stamp and just kind of trace around there just to give myself just a little bit of an idea where to cut around. Now this is just an extra step, you don't have to do that, but I wanted to make a little bit of a halo around my tree and figured this was a good place to start that way. So again, I'm just tracing around there with a pencil, and we're just going to cut that out really quick to create your mask. The tree stamp that we're using is from the Natural Landscape stamp from Stamp School. It is one of our two new stamps that are coming out here in January of 2012. These are our inaugural releases. Really excited to get these out to people. We have had a lot of requests in our brick and mortar store asking for these type of stamps, so I'm hoping that these are well received. Okay, so we have our mask made for our stamp, and the whole thing is sticky, so all of the edges and everything are sticky, which is not what you get when you do it with a post-it note. The whole thing just isn't sticky all the time, so that is why I like this Eclipse stuff better. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tree stamp here, and okay, we're going to take our tree stamp. Sorry about that. I'm going to take the tree stamp and I'm going to ink it up with the Brilliance Coffee Bean ink. I'm going to stamp that off on the corner of my card base with Tim Holtz grid blocks. I really like those. You can see right through them. They have the grid blocks etched in. So yeah, I really like those grid blocks. Again, clean off my stamp. I really like to do that with my clear stamps. I like to be able to see what I'm doing, and I want to make sure that they're clean and that they get conditioned this way too when I clean them. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your mask and you're going to lay that over the stamp, the stamped image, Make sure all of the edges are nice and clean and crisp on your card. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this background stamp, and this is from Glitz Designs. They have a bunch of different distress stamps in this package here, and the one that I'm using right now is just the script stamp. I'm going to take my snow cone ink that matches this pop tone paper that I'm using for my base, and just inking up that stamp all the way across. And you're just going to start to layer that stamped image. You're just going to layer it from top to bottom. I've already scored this card, so I know where the top of my card is. So I'm starting at the top and just kind of working my way down, just re-inking that stamp. Giving a little bit of pressure here just because it's a bigger stamp and I want to make sure that I get some good crisp images all the way across. You are going to, again, just ink it up, and I think I have to do this 3 times to get it all the way to the bottom. The nice thing about these pop tone inks, they match the pop tone paper. They're a dye ink, so you get a really fast dry time, which is really nice. They are a water-based ink, so you can do some of the really cool water-based techniques that you can do with the dye inks. Okay, so once you have your image all stamped all the way across on the background, again, clean off my stamp. Alright, so now I'm going to, well, I was going to take off my mask, and after I did that, I'm thinking, you know, this way you can, oh yeah, here you can see that the mask made it so that the tree doesn't have any text across it. It's clear, it's clean, and it's blank, so you don't see that. Alright, so the next part we are going to do is take some distressed ink and my blending tool, and we are going to do some blending around the card. Pardon my arm in front of the camera there. We're going to start with the antique linen color and my blending tool. You want to get your blending tool nice and inked up. Use a little bit of pressure there so you get some ink. Start over on your craft blending sheet and just do little circles. I like to start on the craft blending sheet just because it gives me a little room to grow so that I don't start with those harsh lines like you can do if you just go right onto the paper. And just kind of go all the way around, all little circles with the antique linen. I'm going to do the same thing with a little bit darker color, but right now I'm going with the antique linen. I'm going to go a little farther into my card with the lighter, just to kind of give it that halo look, so it's kind of worn and rough around the edges. Again, all little circles from your craft sheet onto your cardstock so that it's nice and blended, so you don't get any harsh lines. Now I've reached the top of my card, so I want to make sure that I've got that folded over so I can get a good blend across there too. Okay, when you get enough ink all the way into the card, just kind of add a little bit, blend a little bit more where you want. If you want it farther into the card, you can do that. Just kind of giving this last little bit of touch around the edge. And we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to go with a darker ink this time instead of the antique linen. We're going to go with the brush corduroy, I believe this is. No, this is aged mahogany, I'm sorry. So this time I'm just going to kind of swipe the outsides of the card just a little bit. I don't want to have it come inside into the card very much, just kind of getting those edges instead of going farther in so that it kind of blends and it fades out to the inside of the card. Instead of making all little circles, I just kind of start at the outside and just kind of sweep it into the middle of the card just to have just a little bit of extra color on the outside. When you're done with your inking, you can take your mask off. will see pretty soon here. I'll show you on the camera here pretty soon. But you'll see how your tree image is clear. You don't see any of the blending with the outside, the antique linen or the aged mahogany. You don't see any of the text or anything like that. I didn't like how the halo, I cut my halo or my mask a little bit big, and so you can see some of those harsh lines around the tree. So I'm just going to go in with a little bit of the antique linen and color it just a little bit so that it isn't too harsh. I take my mask that I have and I'm going to stick that right on my stamp sheet so that it's always there with the stamp. So the next time I want to make a card something like this, I can do that without having to make myself another mask. Okay, that's the majority of this card. You can see how the outside blending makes it a lot softer than just the regular cardstock. Thanks for joining us here at stampschool.com. Hope you enjoyed watching us make the card for you, and I hope you learned something. Thanks very much, and I hope you have a great day.